Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited. One of the highlights of my trip to LA was meeting my guest today, this lovely lady. Welcome, Kristen, to the Flower Podcast.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for having me. It was a highlight of my week as well to have you. So thanks for coming
Oh,
to the studio.
I just thoroughly enjoyed kind of seeing the studio and seeing what the amazing flowers you create, because you totally recreate these beautiful anthuriums into your, and I forget what do you refer to them as? I forget all of a sudden.
Irithuriums.
Say that again.
Irithurium.
Irithuriums. That's right.
Yeah. So it's just a marrying the words iridescent and anthurium.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so cool because they should have their own category because they look so cool, so incredible. All right, so we have to start at the beginning. So just kind of trying to find out. I know that you didn't have a conventional way into the world of flowers, and I'd love to kind of find out, how did you end up in the world of flowers?
Oh, um, well, I didn't I haven't been in the floral world for very long. I started kind of dabbling in flowers around 2017, 2018, sort of playing around. I think it really starts for me back when I was like really young. Like I've always been an artist. So, before I could walk, I was on the floor surrounded by piles of crayons and construction paper and paint. And I was always making something with my hands and with color. And so, like, that sort of has been like a really strong part of just who I am as a human being for like my entire life. And long story short, I found myself in a position when I went to college. I feel like I'm like skipping a whole reason actually. I feel like I'm sorry. I feel like I'm like I need to like abbreviate it, but I also feel like the story kind of informs you why I went a
Yeah,
certain way. So
sure.
so I grew up and everyone has their story, but I we grew up in a without a lot. And my mom was a single parent and she worked around the clock. And, my brother and I took care of each other. And my mom, tried to be there when she could, but she had numerous jobs. Um, we did all, the government assistance, all of that stuff, lived in a shelter. And I knew after experiencing that, I'd never, like, I didn't want to be stressed out about where I was going to sleep.
Mm.
Like as I got older and I saw like what other people had, I was like, I want that. I want to have the security. Um, and so I had this huge part of me that was an artist. And like, growing up, I would win awards in art. And my teachers really encouraged me to follow that path. And then, I got it. I actually was really lucky to get a scholarship, an academic scholarship to college. And I was like, I need to find a job that's stable. Like I've lived this life of not having a lot. And like while you don't need a lot to be happy, it's certainly a hell of a lot easier to live your life when you don't have to wonder like where you're gonna sleep and how you're gonna find your next meal. And like I wanted to give my mom that peace of mind that like I was taken care of and like I wanted to take care of her. So all of that going into like, you're making a big decision when you're a senior in high school and you're like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And it feels so
Right.
permanent. So for me, it was go the safe bet. So I started, I majored in, I was pre med. I wanted to be a doctor. Um, and, tried that out. Once I hit organic chemistry, I was like, no, I'm good. Like, this is not for me. And that's where I like made like a knee jerk reaction. I was like, I need to do art. So then I went and I majored in fine art for a year. I actually had to like go to summer school to like catch up my credits while in college. And I ended up dropping out because I didn't like how I was being told to create art, right? So like I had
Mm.
like my own way of expressing myself and I would turn in these pieces of artwork that I loved and I would, get a D. And I was like, what is this? And I'd go to the professor and we'll just say Professor E, we'll call him. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, this is not, this isn't the parameters of this assignment. And I'm like, well, it's how I'm defining these parameters. Like, this is how I'm interpreting this project. Like, and then it's all very subjective. And so it felt like very stressful. And then I was like, how am I going to make money when I graduate? So then I majored in psychology, graduated with a degree in psychology, and I went the corporate consulting route. I got a job as an assistant at a consulting firm in Boston. I left Ohio, and I sort of loved it, like absolutely loved it. I lived for it. It was like everything that I thought I really wanted in life. I had a suit, I would go to work, I had like a cubicle, I got to go on business trips. And I started, working really hard with other senior individuals in the firm. And I was always working on new projects, creating one thing and creating another. And that was great. And then eventually I left that firm and started another firm with one of the senior partners and was creating this whole thing. And then once we were done creating, about 2 years in, I was so bored. I was so bored. Um, I would go to work and I just like felt nothing. I felt nothing, and I stopped painting. Like, I used to paint on the weekends. Um it was just like part of me was kind of like dying inside. It was like that little girl who would draw on the kitchen floor with things all around her was like kind of just like shrinking away. And for me, I realized that part of me is like what gives me life. And there's a lot of like soul searching, I think, that happens. I know I'm speaking, as a millennial, but and a lot of people go through that when they're in their 20s and between 20s and like mid 20s and mid 30s. Is this what I'm really going to do for the rest of my life? Like,
Right.
and we had some changes at the firm and clients, and a lot of things were getting shuffled around. And, my heart wasn't in the work anymore. And it was, it was a good time for me to leave. And it was terrifying, to go from having that secure, stable job to, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life? Um, I know it has to be creative, but like, I don't know any galleries. I didn't even graduate art school. I can't do anything.
Right.
But I was like, oh, I've always loved flowers. And I was running one day and it like hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember the exact cross streets I was in Santa Monica when I was running. And I, it was like a sunset run. And I actually stopped running because I was like, oh my gosh, it was like this moment where a light bulb just went on. And it was like, I'm going to be a florist. Um, and I didn't know anything about floristry. And so began my time of waking up really early in the morning and going downtown and talking to vendors and learning the names of flowers. And I would go down there and I would literally just spend the money that I had on flowers, and I'd have no one to sell them to. I would just take them back to my house and I'd play with them and I'd photograph them and I'd like learn about them. In hindsight, like, well, that was not very smart, right? But like at the time, it was like I was so dead set on this line of work and so determined to make it that I was like, it's not, don't worry about it, Kristen. Like, you're going to make it back. You'll be fine. You just got to learn this space, learn the industry, learn the flowers. And I started doing that, and it still didn't work. I still, I tried the traditional floristry route, and I realized I was in this space. I was the new kid on the block. No one had heard of me. No one knew me. I had no background in florals. They're like, who is this person? Um, and I was just at a point where I was like, what else can I do but make it my own? And I had this whole closet of craft supplies and paints that had been collecting dust. And so I pulled them out and I just started experimenting. I just wanted to see what worked, what looked cool. And there were lots of failures. But then I started posting these things on social media, on Instagram, and I was starting to get like likes and followers, and people were like really interested. And friends started asking me if they could order floral arrangements. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is finally working. And it felt like I was finally in sync with what I wanted to do, right? So like when I first started and I was doing traditional floristry, it was me trying to be something that I wasn't. I was like learning a lot, but I wasn't, my heart wasn't like smiling. And then as soon as I started using paint and color the way that I use it, I just felt like everything just like came together. And when, I know this is going to sound really woo woo, but I just feel like something happens. There's energy in a room with people, right? Like that's how you know when you walk into a room and you're like, I really like this whole energy in this room is really like great and happy, or you walk in and you're like something bad just happened, right?
Right,
Like
right.
energy exists. I don't know the answers. I just know that like when you are acting in a way that agrees with like who you are as a person and you're doing things that like make you happy, the energy, or like some people will call it like the frequency that you emit, is they call it a higher frequency. I don't know. All I know is that opportunities just started coming. And I was just like, oh man, I can't mess this up, you know? And so I would start getting opportunities to do things for like corporate people or, you know, like some celebrities. And I was just like, how can I make this amazing, you know? Um, so anyway, I mean, this is a really long-winded, I think that's like all of the history though of like my life, but I feel like it all really ties into like we are the products of our past, right? And so who I am today sitting in this chair on this podcast with you, like it's just a combination of all the experiences that I've had in my life, and that's why I am the way that I am. And you have
Yeah.
to learn to embrace it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you have to embrace it. We get to embrace it. I feel like I can see that, and hearing your story makes me appreciate your journey even more because um, you you get it in a way. Because I feel like when I see some of your work, all of your work, you feel like there is a different. You're sort of taking the braces off our brains, to quote Annie Mame. I feel like you definitely take and blow the boundaries off what we can consider. So for people who don't realize, so you have two businesses technically. You have Flower Pistol and you have House of Stems, and so both are two separate things that are part of your world, but yet they do overlap a little bit. I know I asked you beforehand, and I wanted to ask you again. So, Flower Pistol, the way you write it, you take all the vowels out, and I love that. And I thought, is that on purpose, or was that just something cool you did for Instagram, or how did that work? So, I'd love to hear. How did you come up with that, and what is Flower Pistol as opposed to House of Stems? Maybe let's talk about both.
That's a good question. Those are a lot of good questions actually. So flower pistil is the botanical artist. It's like the person as an individual. I sign most of my work on the vase flower pistil. It's just sort of like this identity as an artist for me. It's, I get people will, bring me on to do work for them, and you don't know what you're getting. You like what I ask my clients when they call is, okay, do you have a color palette and what's the vibe? Those are the two questions I ask my clients, and then I go and I put sketches together. So that flower pistil is a sole individual person that designs pieces of artwork, fine artwork, and botanical art. Okay. Now, House of Stems is like the sister child of Flower Pistil, and its intended function is to help florists explore their own creativity and provide them with the products to expand their way of expression. So the way I think about it is an alphabet is 20, our English alphabet is 26 letters. And we think that's what it is, 26 letters. We spell
Right.
all of our words with 26 letters. Well, House of Stems, what I aim to do with House of Stems is add a few more characters. So you can spell some new words, you can try some new expressions. Like it's just adding to the repertoire and for people just to enjoy flowers in a new light. I have we have customers at House of Stems that have been working with flowers for over 40 years, and we get emails or calls saying, I'm seeing flowers for the first time with new eyes in 35 years. And it's
Wow.
just like, I get chills just hearing that, because I'm hearing these things from like the most well-respected, highly regarded florists in the game right now. And they're like, I have not looked at flowers this way since I very first started out. And basically, House of Stems, we like, in short, we watch paint dry so you don't have to. Like, because honestly, time is money in floristry. You're expected to turn out, you're expected to produce. So if you go through a day and you can only make one arrangement, guarantee you're not going to pay your rent, because I lived it. You need to have these things ready to go off the shelf so you can produce and bring them to your clients. So yeah, House of Stems is just sort of, it exists to help florists like explore their creativity and expand their offerings and have fun. Add some new colors. Enjoy yourself.
Well, you definitely have added some new colors, and I think the way you take this flower, I mean, like anthuriums for so long, I think a lot of times people steered away from them because they had a hard time working in red or the kind of pink that it was. And then we started getting in, some peaches, some greens, some blushes, some of these other kind of more muted tones, but still they didn't always fit. And now I love the way you describe that, because it's like I'm sorry, you're not adding just a few letters to the alphabet. I think you're adding a whole new alphabet
Oh,
to what people
wow.
are doing, because I really do. Because when I know I saw a photograph on, I think it was on your Instagram stories today, and it was this peachy kind of coppery anthurium that normally wouldn't ever fit this palette, and it fits so perfectly. It's like I don't even see the kind of flower it is. Almost I see the color and how perfectly it blends with that design, and I think, wow, that's incredible. And then I know yesterday, I think I saw you on a friend of mine's story at the market where you had some samples with Sue. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
hilarious. She's hilarious. Anyway, and so I thought, and it's just, you're always creating, you're always finding these new color combinations, and I feel like you can do whatever. And I can appreciate the fact too, you're right. It's it's a skill what you do and how you've developed it. So other people don't have to, which I think is great.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and I'll say this 1,000 times, and I think people get territorial in this space. No one owns painting flowers. And I'll be the first one to stand up and say, I don't own painting flowers. Anyone that has the ability with your hands, your feet, your mouth to pick up a paintbrush and express yourself, and if you choose to paint on a leaf, that's incredible. And whatever you create is yours. Okay. So I encourage people to do it. And if you want to try out the iridescent anthurium, go for it. I spent years working on this product, and if you don't like, if it's not something for you, that's totally cool. And if you want to recreate it at home, totally cool. Why this product is so wonderful is that it doesn't flake, it doesn't bleed, it's waterproof. It lasts, like, honestly, we have stems that last 2 months if they're given proper care. And the fact that, you mentioned a really great point, that anthurium really haven't found a place in a bouquet of flowers to like blend in, right? They stick out like a sore thumb. That spadix is just like out there, right? That's like that center part.
Right.
But what our finish does is that the iridescent finish, it reflects the colors around it. So it will blend like with any palette. They're like chameleon flowers. So if you have a purple and gold Sahara Irithurium and you blend it with blues, the blues are going to bounce off the gold finish on the edges of that Sahara Irithurium from House of Stems. Like, it really does a good job of like blending in with everyone around it, but still kind of standing out at the same time. But like I said, like, it's waterproof. It doesn't flake. It lasts a really long time if you look after it. We call them diva baths. They're basically like, after all us florists have a really long day at work and you go home and you want to soak, Like that's what we do for the Irithuriums, and we let them soak at room temp water. And anytime they look a little bit dried out, you just pop them in a diva bath overnight, and or even 4 to 6 hours, and it comes out looking new. So yeah, I mean, like for sure, like yeah. But I don't know. They never get old to me. I've been working with them for years, and they're just crowd pleasers. The
Well, it's so
clients love
unexpected.
them and ask for them all the time.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And like I just said, they're so unexpected. Okay, so uh, I kind of don't know which direction to go in because I feel like we could unpack a lot. So going back to Flower Pistol,
Okay.
that is. I mean, obviously, when you go to your Instagram page or your website, you see just all this amazing kind of artwork, and you can tell a lot of custom pieces and things, leaves turning and twisting in colors and dynamics you don't normally see. And then all of a sudden you see, which I just totally, because I'm obsessed with this anyway, but those earrings with the little Venus flytraps in it that you did, I'm like, that is so cool. And then your wearables, like when you're doing, I mean, you've done quite a few wearables, I believe. Um, so Flower Pistol, it kind of does anything and everything, or is there sort of, is there a certain thing that you specifically love? Um, what are you trying to promote there?
Flower Pistol is like, so okay, so this is we're like getting into like this interesting conversation that's sort of been, it's sort of happening in the periphery in the industry, but this conversation about floristry and botanical artistry.
Right.
Um, are they the same? Absolutely not. Uh, does the world understand botanical artistry? No. Is it brand new? No. But is it getting a lot more attention right now? Yes. It's getting a lot more mainstream pop attention, like pop culture. Um, and so Flower Pistol is a botanic, like what I do as Flower Pistol is botanical art. And so that means pushing boundaries, using mixed media, um, and just my goal is to make people feel something. So
Mm.
if I need to put sparklers in a floral arrangement, then I will. If it fits the bill and it inspires me, I will do it. um so yeah, there really are no boundaries. The boundaries that there's no boundaries for Flower Pistol. That's really the think tank that serves House of Stems. It's our research and development. I can go and play in the studio all day and come out with one thing that works. And if it works again and again and again, then that's something that might be available on House of Stems. So I test things
Mm.
out. It's florist tested, approved, created, client approved, and then we offer it through House of Stems. Like it comes already vetted. But yeah, so sorry, Flower Pistol is like the Willy Wonka artist version of botanical art, pushing boundaries and more spending more time in the fine art space as we go into next year as well.
I love the Willy Wonka analogy because I totally see that connection, and how great that you get positive feedback and you get this. It's almost like R&D. Like you get to put it out there, and then the feedback will help navigate whether or not it flows over to House of Stems, and then everybody can take advantage of that R&D. So I love that.
Yeah, all of my fellow florists, they're either friends or friends I haven't met yet. So if there's anything that I can do to help elevate this industry, and like, shine a tiny, like for my space to bring a little bit more attention over to this area, like I want to do that. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Mm.
And so the more it's talked about in mainstream culture, the more we're going to see bigger installations for events and weddings, music videos, things like that. There's been a huge appetite for floral art and botanical art in music videos as of recent. And I only think that it's going to get wilder and crazier. We're just getting started.
I love that. And I think you're right, and I feel like we definitely, it's just so incredible to me. I know recently I've seen, it was one of our previous customers that she was working on some music video sets and kind of reminded me of not like what you, because it was a Katy Perry you worked with that one time.
There's a few.
There's
Yeah.
a few. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that, but it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And I just think that is a level of floristry that I almost think maybe would have happened a long time ago, like royalty or, people with, unlimited means basically. You would have seen things like that. Or I have this vision of that. And for so long, flowers became mainstream in a way that was very just not very creative. It was very, we're trying to make McDonald's situations where the same roundy mound gets put out on every, city street corner, and you can just pick up the phone and you're gonna. And I understand that there is an advantage to have that continuity of product, but why would you want that when your product is different every place, your artists are different in every place, and the visions are different? And I just think this is really, really, really incredible. And so I'm excited to hear that.
Thanks. I mean, like you make a really, a good point. I think for so long it was popularized, and I don't want to target any online flower supply houses that serve the public, but you end up with a lot of people just order things online because that's what they think is what their option is,
Right.
and order something that they think they ordered, and then like something completely different shows up at their mom or their best friend's door, and they're like, what? This doesn't make sense. And that's because that model doesn't really work. um but in my opinion, I don't think it works. I think that like people have their own aesthetic and like they should run with it. um in that vein though, like Martha Stewart and her flowers are beautiful, and they have it, there's a time and place for every style of flowers. Like just like there's 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year. If you ate out every year or every night, or like picked a different cuisine every day, or you have 3 meals a day, guess what? You do not have to eat Italian every meal 365 days a year. You might be feeling party and like you want to have like a really flirty event and like bright colors that are electrifying, and like you might call me, but you also might want something that's very subtle and that is not like an attention grabber. And you might end up with a beautiful bowl of hydrangea like Martha Stewart. I'm more of like the Edward Scissorhands. Like if I were a character, I would be like the Edward Scissorhands, and I would be like, there'd be Martha Stewart. But yeah, I mean, like I'd be chopping up her hydrangea, turning it into little like dogs and cats and things like that with
I
shears.
love that. I love
But
that.
I absolutely think that there's room for everyone. And when you're in a pinch, you need fast food, and you're like going from one thing to another, you stop and you get fast food because you got to feed yourself. And to equivocate food and flowers is not the same, because one is nutrients for your body, right? But like at the same time, there's room for everyone in this world, like in the floral world.
Every time I see your work on Flower Pistol, I'm totally, I can see where this creative energy, if you will, is what gets directed into House of Stems. So going back to House of Stems now, and your Irithurium, did I say that right?
Irithurium.
Erythria.
No, so think of ear, and then therium. Irithurium.
Irithurium.
There you go.
Irithurium. There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Irithurium. So every time I think about your Irithuriums, I am amazed. And I mean, like even that one, I know when I was visiting, you sent that one that I really was obsessing about. And I don't know if you knew this, um, but I carried it with me on the airplane. It went through inspections. I brought it home with me. It got beaten by x-ray machines and everything else. And it still lasted like 6 weeks, I think. And
Yeah.
it was,
testimony right from Scott Shepard himself, ladies and gentlemen. He met me in LA, got an Irithurium, took it all the way back to Georgia, right?
yeah,
And it went through TSA. And
yeah.
then it lasted 6 weeks.
Yeah, and it wasn't even gentle. I mean, I'm like, even the TSA people are like, it won't make it through the machine, and I'm like, I had it water tubed. I had it. I mean, it sat in the seat with me. I think I even have a picture of it. I'll have to post that on Instagram when we release this episode. On the airplane, I had a picture of it, like in the
Oh
window
my
and
gosh,
stuff.
I want to see that.
So it was so funny, but yeah, it lasted so long, and anyway, so if people are seeing these flowers and they're interested in it, how does it work? Is it, I mean, I feel like you must have, I don't know, 150 colors now or combinations. I mean, I know you do custom work, which only probably adds more layers to the decision making process. But how do people figure out what they need, want, or how does it work?
So we have around between 20 and 30 varieties off the shelf available. I mean, I say off the shelf, I mean on the website.
Okay.
We have a week lead time. Every week it cuts off at on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. So if you place an order on Wednesday and you need it next week, you're not going to get it. You have to place it by Tuesday of the week prior in order to get that.
That's good to know.
And that is working with the shortest possible deadline that we can possibly do. We all are like working around the clock to get these out and like out to clients ASAP. But yeah, we have 22 different, I think we have 22 right now. It fluctuates. We change seasonally. So as our clients' needs change, we also reflect those with our color selection. So you know, drop a little preview here. We are releasing a jewel toned bridal suite of colors for fall weddings in the next couple of weeks. Thinking like aubergine, like eggplant, like Bordeaux oxblood colors, maybe an onyx, like a dark green sage, navy blue. So we're gonna have some moody colors available. But what you do is you just go to our website and we have two options. We have floral enthusiasts, so non-florists, those people that don't have any resale permits, and then all the florists that do have resale permits. And you basically reach out and create an account with us. Jessica, our COO, is most likely the person you'll be interacting with during that whole process. It's actually very simple. You just send over your wholesale or your resale license, your seller permit, and we'll set you up with an account and password. And then you have access to everything. We have really great shipping rates. Shout out to the Cal Growers Association. They, being part of that association, has really helped us cut down on shipping expenses, which in the beginning were honestly killing us.
Yeah.
We would just have so many, you know, failed sales because it was like to ship it overnight would be like more or just as expensive as the flowers. Yeah, so we have a minimum order of 10 stems because it just, the way it works out economically is it's best for our customers to get 10 stems, price per stem for shipping. It's just like we did that to organize, like, so you guys could maximize, stretch your dollars. And yeah, I mean, you can place an order up to, I think, 100 stems online. Anything after that, you have to kind of reach out and email us. But there should be enough colors there that they should match your palette. But if there's a reason that you don't see, if you're looking for a very custom palette, we do offer customs, which I actually paint myself. So you get me for basically a day, an afternoon, and I will work on all those stems personally. So yeah, we have a lot of options available, and it won't always just be Irithurium. So keep that in mind. Wink, wink.
Well, I know
My
what?
shameless plug. Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, I'm surprised because it feels like, and I guess because you change seasons, so some colors come in and out of season, and maybe that's why it just seems like there's more. But I know that some when I was at the LA market, I noticed some wholesalers are also even selling your flowers. So do you have a lot of that goes on for people who maybe just want to just pick up and be spontaneous and just like, get and go?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally like did not mention that just now. Our products are carried by Mayesh all over California, in Texas. Um, we also just started, our products just started being carried in New York City by the New York Flower Group. All those the
Mm-hmm.
big wholesalers, they all come together in the New York Flower Group. So look for our stems at G Page. That's where you can find the Irithuriums. And we also have stockists throughout across the country. So those are florists that bulk buy, and they basically serve as, they keep inventory. And so they use them in their, arrangements every day, but they also keep them on hand and can sell to other florists and things like that. So we have a list of all of those places and names and everything that you could possibly need if you need something in that moment, or you only want one or two stems. And that's on our stockist page on hausofstems.com.
Okay. Well, that's good to know too. I didn't realize that.
And Haus is spelled Haus.
Yes. Thank you for
So
saying
everyone
that.
knows Haus of stems.com. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't even think to bring that up. I'm so used to it. Anyway, that's awesome. And one of the other things I thought was so cool when I was there in your studio were those little minis, those little tiny ones. Is that something you can order too, or is that just special, like special order?
Yeah. So we just started selling minis. And really excited about it. If your budget doesn't allow for the really big ones, then the smaller minis are a better option. They're also really good because you can put them in tiny little posies or like smaller bouquets, because a large anthurium can really take over a piece. So like these, they're just so cute, and we actually get them from Hawaii, and they have long stems most of the time. They have at least 5-inch stems, and they're not as predictable. So you can order them in certain palettes. So right now we have a bright and a neutral palette, and then we have a surprise me option, and you buy them in groups of 10. I think what I'd like to do in the next, month is we will be offering certain palettes. So like blues and purples, or greens and blues, and like you can pick that palette. So instead of it's just like brights, or it's just neutrals, which is usually like golds and brasses and like silvers. So, but yeah, the minis they're just so cute, and they
Yeah.
last just as long, if not longer. And so far, so good. People are really enjoying them. They're great for boutonnieres and corsages. And we actually have a fourth generation lei maker. Shout out to for Lays by Leilani. She's a fourth generation lei maker. She actually makes lei and lei po with our Irithurium. And so we sort of, brought her in and support her work as a Hawaiian lei maker. And she also ships nationwide. So
That's
for any
incredible.
lei makers out there, she loves using them. So
So I'm curious, what has been, I mean, first starting your own business is a challenge, much less starting now sort of a brand and a product line is a whole nother challenge possibly. What has been one of the biggest things you've had to overcome in creating not one but two businesses?
like which hurdle should we talk about first?
Oh, you can pick a couple.
I don't know. I love the journey. Without the ups and downs, without the downs, the ups wouldn't be as great. I'd say the uncertainty. Bootstrapping a business and you're not sure there's a market is terrifying. Um, I had to get a warehouse to work out of before I really knew if we were going to be able to pay the rent on it. I took a gamble. My gut said yes. My brain was like, no, 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 don't do that. My heart was like, yeah, go Kristen, like, let's do this. But so I went with my gut, and the gut was like, we're unsure, but we have a good feeling about this. So so far so good. Uh, you got to take a chance on yourself. You have to believe in yourself, especially when you're moving into a space that's like uncharted territory.
Yeah.
botanical art, like I said, is not new. People have been painting flowers, and I'm sure for years, and I'm sure there's work that we will never see because it was pre-social media. Um, so shout out to all those people out there that have been doing this, and we just didn't know. But it's still terrifying because you don't know how long. There are days I wake up and I go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I put everything I own, like everything is based on painting flowers and leaves." It's terrifying. So I think dealing with the anxiety and the stress around that is significant enough that's noted, right? So like it's not the internal uncertainty and constant questioning yourself is all part of like sharpening your blade. You have to go through all of that mental like conversation in your head, just being like, okay, you have to poke holes in your own ideas. So just going through that. I don't have a partner, so it's just like it's like me, myself, and my dog, and it's like that's what's on the line is like everything I own. And so just making that leap is terrifying, but also super exhilarating. I've not been skydiving yet, but it's on the list. Um, and so there's that. And then I think pricing. I think pricing is probably the biggest taboo topic, yet most desired topic of discussion amongst florists. It's for some reason, difficult to talk with each other about it, and openly discuss how we charge and what rates are. I think people are worried about losing clients. And, just to talk about the elephant in the room, there is competition between florists. And it's pricing your work has pricing my work has been challenging because it used to take me an entire day to do an arrangement. So if that's what it took me, that means that my arrangements are going to be very expensive, and then they die. And so working out a system that doesn't feel like I am watering down what I can create as an artist, but also meets my clients' needs in a way that doesn't like chase them off, right? We're just
Right.
sort of changing. The industry is changing. Price points are changing, and I think sort of asking for what you're worth is a issue that a lot of florists struggle with. Um, it's hard to do when you do when you love what you do, and you think, well, I at least I just get to do it. Well, you got to take care of yourself as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. I mean, you made a couple of great things. I know I hear a lot on more business minded podcasts where you're talking about this dynamic of your gut and your head. And your head is that part of you that really wants to protect you, that keeps you safe, that keeps you out of trouble, that helps keep you safe, like I said. And your gut a lot of times is that vision, like, oh no, I can do this, or that unstoppable force that can do anything. And of course, you're trying to push past that wall of fear that's upstairs with your heart, which is excited about what you're doing. I think that is a real challenge. And then pricing. I mean, when you put so much more labor into what you create than the average person or floral designer does, because you are painting, you are manipulating leaves, you are, it is a work of art. And uh, that is not just something that you're following a Betty Crocker cookbook on. That's a process. And I could see where that is hard. It's hard to put a value on, but I think it's really important. I know I feel so strongly about people pricing what they're worth or pricing what they need to, because there's this domino effect that trickles all the way down from the grower to our industry as a whole when people don't price correctly. Because I feel like, through whether it's lack of confidence or just not having the knowledge, it's scary. So I can appreciate that challenge, especially with what you do. Do you think you have it figured out as far as that goes, pricing?
So, every time I think I have it figured out, I get a project that pushes my boundaries and blows past everything. So, I'm the florist that people come to and they're like, I have this idea. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Of course it's possible. Now, am I going to have to bring in contractors and like cherry pickers or crane? Yeah, I'm going to have to bring in all of those things. So your budget
Right.
has to be big, but like literally your imagination is just the beginning, and we're just starting to dig into that space where like the installations are getting bigger and they're lasting longer and they're getting more permanent. You're seeing things pop up in restaurants and in storefronts that change seasonally. Like, yeah. So I mean, pricing wise, every time I think that I've got it, and I have my arrangements down pretty much. Oftentimes I'll get an arrangement, I'll make a bigger profit on one than the other, but I just sort of, it all balances out in a day in terms of time. That's what I go with. And it's also research and development for Haus of Stems. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm working on a project now that's like, I'm just, hoping I won't lose money. I know enough about this that I'm not losing money, but it's not like something that's going to send me on vacation. And
Right.
I'm breaking my back on it. And it's like an incredible experience. And I'm learning so much. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do this again. But I got to finish this one first, you
Right.
know? So things are always changing. What you should do, calculate what you want to make in a year, divide it up, then break down your materials. That's how you find your hourly rate, what you want to make in a year, what's reasonable. Everyone would love to make $10 million. I don't know if everyone, but some people would. Is that realistic? No, I can't charge that. But what you can do is come up with a range, divide it up, make that your hourly. And if you're like, okay, well, I'm not taking home that much a day, think about what else you could do to fill the time to make money while you sleep. Um,
Yes.
that's, I have to say something. So I started listening to your podcast years ago when you were just starting out. You were still selling flowers, and
Okay.
right, because like you started
Yeah.
doing a podcast and you were still selling flowers at the time. You had Ashley Woodson Bailey on the
Yes.
podcast, and she sells like wallpapers. And a light went on. I was like, this is amazing. This is cool. This is different. And I mean, your podcast and like it's just like very strange for me to have this full circle moment because I used to listen while I was scrubbing the dishes in my kitchen, uh, like with the like headphones on, and I would like rest it on the shelf next to my sink. And I'd listen to your podcast, and never in a million years did I think that I would ever meet you, let alone be a guest on your podcast. So um, anyway, I digress, but it was sort of
Thank
like
you for saying
learning
that.
about it's so cool to watch you, and now you do it full time.
Right now, I do, yeah, and it's crazy the circle, but I think though it's so funny because people go through seasons and people go through their growth, and it was. I mean, we haven't shared this yet, but when I was in LA, I didn't realize you were in LA. I mean, I had been following you, but I had never paid attention to where you were. And so when I reached out to you, I was like, oh my gosh, they're here. I've got to go. I cannot not go see them. And it was, it's that's the thing about this industry that I love is that it's such a big industry with so much talent and so many different ways that people approach flowers, but yet it's a really small community. And I love that. I love that part of it. So anyway, thank you for sharing that.
And
So
thank you for starting this beautiful podcast. It was like you guys were like my only floral friends for a while. And I felt like I could relate to what your guests were saying, even from like the very early stages of my floral career. So thank you.
well, I have to tell you this because I don't know if I may have told you this when I was there, but Ashley Woodson Bailey, who is a good friend, and was our second episode. So if you've never gone back to hear the early episodes, you can still do that
Was
now.
she
Go
that? Was
back.
she number two?
She
That's
was number
amazing.
two. Yeah, she was number two. And anyway, and she even says it in that episode, I think. She hates anthuriums. She hated anthuriums. But when I saw your House of Stems Irithuriums in her hands, I knew I could just hear her. I mean, like kid in a candy store, like she looks at this flower totally different now, and it's really because of you, I think. And
Oh,
so, it's just neat the way things cycle through. So, anyway,
nature made this beautiful canvas called an anthurium, and I just had to put paint on it.
I know not everyone can appreciate painted flowers and things like that, and I feel
It's a
like
fine line.
it
It's a
is a
fine
fine
line.
line. It is a fine line, and I feel like though, um, not that I want to see paint all over the universe everywhere, but in this particular case, I can totally appreciate the artistic value in it, and that it just adds so much value and opportunity for this flower, and I can appreciate it.
I just think that, thank you. And I think that there's like, if paint isn't your thing, that's cool. Like, I would call those florists purists, like a purist. And those are people that just work with things in the state that nature gives them to us. And that's beautiful as well. What I like about the Irithurium is that the finish that we apply, it only enhances the grooves and the ridges of the flower itself. So that's actually the spade that we paint. It's actually not the flower. The flower is the spadix that comes through
Right.
the center. But it's all semantics really, unless you're growing them or like buying them in mass quantities like we do. But and you have to like talk about it on the phone. You're like, yeah, I don't know, this the shape of this the spade isn't right. Like the texture is okay, like, but it definitely, I think painting there's a fine line. Like you have to make a decision in your art what route you're taking. There are some botanical artists that cover everything completely in paint. And like that is their thing. And like that's cool. Like express yourself and do that. I believe personally that there's a dance between paint and Mother Nature. And they try to make them so they dance together in a very complementary way. And that you can still appreciate nature. And I love to make people question whether the natural stuff is painted or the painted stuff is natural.
Mm.
And that's kind of like when you see everything together and they all sit next to each other, it makes you kind of go, well, which one's real? Which one's died? Um, but yeah, I don't know. I like to play with that stuff. And I think, like I said, it's a fine line for me, whether you dump paint on everything or not. And I think how the paint looks, the finish is super important. It needs to be smooth. It needs to complement the flower. It can't cake on. It can't flake. Like these are all things that botanical artists who use paint every day are also aware of. So anyone listening, I'm sure they're like nodding their head. They're like, yep, been there, done that. So
Well, having just said what you said about this dance between both, we have to talk about full bloom. And so, uh, it, when I first, one of the things I remember about you the first time I watched season one, which you're on, was your ability to just want to color things, and like, because you may only be given certain things that you have to work with, and you're trying to figure out how to make them connect, and you just were master at doing that. And I think it's so fun. So tell us, looking back now, there's a season two. So you're in the inaugural, you're an OG now. So,
yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. No, I
um,
love it. I love being the first season.
I'm just curious, how would you describe your experience? What do you, when you look back, what did you learn from it?
Wow, I learned so much. I learned, I really learned that there is space for all different types of florists. you know, the cast of season one, we all truly, well, I don't know about that. I think that I truly recognized everyone in their own right, in their own space. I felt that everyone was at the top in their own space, in their own respective aesthetic. And I think that that's where I was like, wow, like all of these things are so beautiful. You can't really compare them. It's like apples and oranges.
Right.
So there's like that. There's learning from all different of all different florists there, just like seeing how they work and like their stories. There's a lot of time spent waiting around, like in vans or standing on X's, trying to get the shot, so everyone's sort of in it together. And it was really hot when we filmed because we actually had to do a reboot. We started in March, uh, like the same schedule that season two actually followed the right schedule. So we started shooting in March of last year, had to stop because of the pandemic. And then when we returned in August, it was over 100 degrees in the valley every single day. It was absolute, oh, I don't even know. It was
I
just,
mean, that's the hottest time of year.
it was, I honestly wish that someone had taken an egg and cracked it on the sidewalk because it would have fried. Like, we had so many close calls with people on heat exhaustion. So much sunblock was applied. Um, Watching the flowers just like deflate was really disheartening when you're trying to compete. Production did everything they possibly could to like keep the flowers alive, but it was hot. So just sort of like in those conditions, keeping a positive attitude, know that you're competing for something that's really big and life changing, but you're also there not to make enemies. I made a lot of friends that I call and talk to like at least weekly. Um, and yeah, I mean, also like embrace the journey. You're going to fall down a few times. The important thing is you always stand up. Fall down 7, get up 8, right?
There you go.
So if you fall, always get up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Keep your blinders on, know what you want, know your vision, and have confidence in that. So, as much as my aesthetic and my style of art was, probably pretty different comparatively to the other contestants, I went there to be myself. And, you know, it is what it is. And I was myself. And I wanted to, at the end of the day, if I was sent home, which I eventually was to be proud of the work that I created. And I was for the most part. And under 2 hours is pretty crazy time constraints for me, who usually takes 6 hours to do an arrangement.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that is a lot of pressure. And then sometimes, it was interesting. I think it was when you guys were doing the cakes, and you hear one of the judges, and I can't remember which one it was, say, "This is crazy. It's not uncommon for us to take 45 minutes to an hour to do a cake that's only, however, what, 2 feet high or something like that. Here you are charged with the responsibility of decorating a cake that's what, I don't know, 12 feet high or 10 feet high
Those
by,
were 18 feet,
oh, wow.
maybe 12. They were really big. And we were down one person. We had a team of 3. Uh, the 3 smallest, all of us together on a team. And we still came out triumphant, but it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
ultimately it came down to, I think, strategy. When we decided to wrap it, when I decided to put tulle around the outside, that was like really what helped us get an edge in terms of time.
Yeah. Because you were able to add color and a feel that covered a massive amount of area. So you could really focus on key areas on the cake, like the topper and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So, wow. Yeah.
And Ace's cake was great too. It was just,
Yeah.
yeah, great
So,
experience. Great experience.
well, that's awesome. Well, I'm hoping they're going to have a season 3. I haven't heard yet. Have you?
I haven't heard anything.
So,
Yeah.
It's interesting. I really like the format that they changed to this year, or the next season. I think having the group and then the individuals, I think that allows people to stand more on their own merit. Than kind of how they did it in the first season. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I know we've actually been chatting back and forth with Simon a little bit about hopefully getting him on the podcast. And
Oh,
so that should
I'll have
be
to egg him on. I'll send him a message. Be like,
okay. Do
I just
that.
did this. Now you got to do it.
Yeah. Well, no, we're just trying to finalize
I can show you
times.
up, Simon. Come on.
Yeah. And it was so funny because I was actually texting Connor or DMing Connor this morning because he posted this incredible lily.
He's in Italy.
I know. And I was like, what is that? Is that, I mean, I thought it was a lily, a double lily, but it was just such an interesting shape. And he had talked about he was forcing it. So that's, again, going back to just loving the fact our community is so small that we can be
It is
connected
so small.
and have friends all over the world. And I think that's really
Yeah.
neat. Okay, so we always like to wrap up with that advice question, which what you just said actually was really good. Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave people that might be wanting to start a business or have started a business? Anything that you feel that maybe you wish you knew?
I would think I would spend more time on the pricing thing earlier on. I mean, everything has come together, but again, if you're starting out a small business, you're not like, unless you have a big windfall, like you're going to be bootstrapping. Um, so yeah, keep that in mind. Never stop experimenting. You're always going to find something, and put your mind to something. Don't let up. Like, don't listen to the outside unless it's like really screaming, being like, this isn't working. A lot of my clients, like the Katy Perry music video, I had connected with Katy, and I knew I wanted to do a flower dress for her. I was just like, I had these visions. And so I put together a bunch of boards and I put it together and I dropped it off to her. And months went by, and there was no talk of these flower dresses. And then one day I got a call, and it was asking me if I could do this for the music video. And so put it out in the universe. Don't sell yourself short. One thing leads to another. So just continue to push yourself. It's easy to stick with something that's like easy, like that's like predictable and stable. And if you want to do, 15 hotels a week and that's your thing, that's wonderful. There's lots of room to be creative in that space as well, if that's what you want. But honestly, never stop introducing uncertainty into your life, because that's where the magic happens and that's where you grow.
Mm. Wow. I really appreciate that. And I've never heard that. I've never even heard that on other podcasts, but that's really something that I think I need to make a bumper sticker out of that or something. That needs to be something.
Long. How do we?
Yeah. Okay.
Virgo, so
Well, why should we keep bumper stickers just a foot long? Maybe they should be 3 feet long. Maybe.
Why not? We could be the
Why
first
not?
ones.
That's right. I love that. So, well, Kristen, thank you so much for this time, and thank you for being on the Flower Podcast.
I still can't believe that this is happening. Someone pinch me. I can't believe that I'm talking to you on this podcast.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Thank you so much for having me and asking me about Flower Pistil and Haus of Stems. It's just a true honor to be on this. Real crazy moment for me. But wow, thank you.